Well, hello again. I've been keeping under radar for a while, so I apologise for not being in touch, but I'm here to basically review and mention the new books that came out this year, 2018, which are an update of the old books, I say. Well, hello again. I've been keeping under radar for a while, so I apologise for not being in touch, but I'm here to basically review and mention the new books that came out this year, 2018, which are an update of the old books. I say the old books, the Welsh Triangle, which was published in 1979, ran through to 1989, and then UFO UK, which ran in 1980. So last a year or two, as you know, we had Secret Life of a Spook, which was my autobiography. And that didn't cover too much on the UFO field. It was basically about my life, how I arrived where I am now, what I got up to, what I was asked to do. And I was as honest in that as I could be. There's a lot of information in this book. And as I've said to people online and privately, if you know how to read between the lines, there's a lot of code in this book. And I play tricks insofar as I relate the books to each other. So you will find code that relates to one book and code relates back to the first book. So in fact, if you buy all three, you can put the jigsaw together. But you've got to use the little grey cells, because I respect your intelligence. Okay, so that was basically 2017. And then we got together and I brought some new data to the Welsh Triangle, and we published the Welsh Triangle Revisited, which is thicker than the old book and is beautifully presented. You get these from Amazon. They're printed from Amazon in all territories. You can get them in any country all over the world. Very quick delivery. And they're also on Kindle for those who don't buy books and prefer to just read electronically. So, new data in the Welsh Triangle Revisited, and a new aspect. Basically, I learned a lot, and I also unlearned a lot, if you follow my drift, in the long period of time since 1979 to the present day. So that was published at the beginning of 18. And then, subsequently, we took UFO UK and updated that, again, with quite a lot of additional material. All of the original words of the original two books are in there. Nothing was cut out. That I could include some things that I wasn't allowed to say at the time, way back then, when things were a bit more sensitive, particularly in the Welsh Triangle about the United States listening station, which is in St Bride's Bay for basically anti-submarine warfare, listening on microphones way out in the Atlantic for the infrasound on the propellers. And each boat, submarine, and each ship has an individual signature which you can identify with computers. So you know where the boat is, you know where the ship is, you know where it's going, you know its speed. You can even hear voices in submarines, believe it or not. And it's good for also listening to whale song. You can hear the whales talking to each other because they use infrasound, which is transmitted over huge periods of huge distances. Lots of interesting stuff there. And that brings us more or less up to date. Will there be any more books? I don't know. I'm under a lot of pressure that there won't be. I'll be very honest about that. I've flagged there is a book out there called The Dark Triangle, which is in purely notation form at the present time, and I've been asked not to publish it. There have been various attempts, some of them quite serious, to influence me not to publish it, and for the moment I agree with the reason why. I agree with the reason why. I was saying to my colleague here, Tanya, who is very instrumental in presenting these books in their technical form, that the world is very unstable politically and economically at the present time. it's probably a time when it's wise for people like me to shut up, because I don't want to do anything, even with the most well-meaning motives, that would in any way influence things either way. I believe in democracy. I believe in people making up their own mind, and politicians hopefully hopefully expressing the will of the people. But that would be a good idea. I'm not going to comment on that. No, far too sensitive. Any rate, my view at the moment is I'm just keeping under radar, talking to you about the books, and saying there's a lot there at the present time. We'll wait well into the near future before we say anything else. And I apologise for not being on the media, the Facebook and that. I do read your messages. I don't reply. I do reply to my email, and I should repeat that to you here, which is Peter Paget. That's Paget. It's not the Paget. Some people put the D in there. There's no D in there. It's Peter Paget, 2012 at yahoo.co.uk. I'll say that again. Peter Paget, 2012 at yahoo.co.uk. And I do reply to emails in detail. I've not missed one, not in, or at least not, I don't think I have, not in all the years. But I don't reply to Facebook. Too voluminous, too difficult a domain. I'm careful of all of the badinage that goes out about on the internet, and people liking this and not liking that. So I try to stay out of that. But there's this wonderful communication network now on the internet, where people express their views, and every man and his dog has got a channel, which is good. And hopefully they use those responsibly. I want to talk about a couple of things just topically, which have come up more poignantly since the books were published, and the last one was published in the middle of this year, 2018, which I want you to pay attention to, because I'm a person who tends to flag up warnings. I've flagged up warnings to governments and to individuals in significant economic situations, heads of companies before now. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. And I try to follow a path of safety and care towards my fellow human beings, and the animals and the environment for that matter. The first thing I want to mention is 5G. 5G is 5th generation, and the advantages that are put out by the industry is that it's faster and more comprehensive, and you can do more with it from a technical point of view. The danger is the frequencies at which it uses, or is intended to use, because they're getting into higher and higher frequencies, and these frequencies resonate with molecules. 5G tends to resonate with water molecules. Now, as you know, as I'm sitting here, 98% of my body is water, or whatever it is. Most biological life, water is the key factor. The point being, just today, and today is the 22nd of November 2018, I read a report which emphasises this, that in The Hague, Holland, they ran a test on a 5G transmission tower, and at the moment they ran that test, approximately 150 starlings, birds, fell out of the sky stone dead. Dead, bang, gone. Now, that's not a coincidence. The dogs in the park over which this occurred ran away, and some of them jumped in the canal. There's lots of canals in Holland. I've been there, I know. The point being, if that isn't a warning sign, one of many, that these extremely high frequencies are radically impacting animals and human beings, maybe, and I'm speculating here, the starlings being a small bird, it was terminal. Dogs, being a bigger biological mass, more blood volume, were distressed, but they didn't die. And you could argue that human beings would be less affected, and you can argue that an elephant would be even less affected. But the point is they are being affected. And as anyone knows who's done any physics, is that radiation of any kind is time relevant. It's exposure. If you go out in the sunlight on a bright day in the summer, we have summers, still occasionally here in England and in other parts of the world, I'm in England temporarily at the moment, is that you lay in the sun for 20 minutes, you get a bit of suntan, fine. You lay in the sun for 2 hours, you'll be red lobster, won't you? It's time relevant. So the exposure in that case to ultraviolet light is giving you either a nice, good situation, vitamin D, the suntan, or it's burning you and causing a problem. And all radiation works exactly the same. Now, let's touch on Fukushima, which is the same situation. Fukushima is still, that's the reactors that melted down in Japan, hasn't gone away. In fact, it's getting worse. It is still releasing approximately 350 metric tons of highly radioactive water into the waters just off Japan every single day. All right? And that is drifting in the currents of the northeastern Pacific around in various vortexes and arrives after about 12 or 14 months over on the west coast of the United States and Canada, Alaska, even down as far as Mexico. Now, the exposure to radiation is again time relevant. If you go to a nuclear power station, as I did when I was commissioned to do a film on one in England, they give you a badge. The badge sits in your pocket and it is a measure of radiation that you are being exposed to. And I'm there for a day filming and they look at the measure and they say, oh yeah, that's all right, you're fine. The staff wear these badges and they have a certain exposure rate over a year which is considered safe, although in fact none of it is purely safe. Now the point is the repair and maintenance staff at Fukushima who are working on site are getting 1 year's exposure measurement in 3 days. In 3 days of working at Fukushima, they're getting a whole year of considered safe. Now that gives you a level of the danger to them. And they also get something which is called skyshine, which is from a very strong radioactive source. The particles go up into the atmosphere, collide with atoms, are reflected back down as secondary daughter particles and come back down as what they call skyshine. That's very dangerous as well. The more dangerous thing is nucleoids. And you can find a lot about this on the web. These go out into the water. They can also go out into the atmosphere. And they are little tiny particles of very highly radioactive material. Can be plutonium or strontium or cesium-134, cesium-137 and a whole range of other stuff. Has different half-lives. The one you might have heard about is iodine, but radioactive iodine has a very short half-life. It's only if you're very near to the accident or whatever it is that's a problem. But these longer products have long half-lives. We're talking 40,000 years or more. We're talking on the lesser ones, maybe 240 years. And they drift about in the water of the Northeast Pacific and they go through the food chain, the plankton, the shrimp, the fish, the bigger fish, the tuna, and they just move around both in terms of the water, in terms of the migration of animals. They will end up in the food chain. They are in the food chain. I've already moaned to various supermarkets, don't sell products from the Northeast Pacific. No matter how much the Americans tell you they're safe, they are not safe. And these nucleoids, if they get into you, are more dangerous than you being irradiated like with sunlight or with, actual radiation. Because a nucleoid will park itself in your body and it might be misidentified by the body as, say, calcium, which it is not, and be parked in a bone or parked near a major organ, and then over a very short distance it will irradiate the DNA and cause malfunction of the DNA. So then that reproduces, and over a number of many cycles it will produce cancer. Now the number of times that this can happen, that needs to happen to present cancer could be 15 years. And you might say, well, 15 years, why would I worry? But hang on, 15 years, you know, I can remember 15 years ago what I was doing, and here I am now, I'm okay. A mate of mine went to Chernobyl. He flew into Chernobyl on the aircraft with the team to analyse Chernobyl. That was the Ukrainian accident. And as they went in, their Geiger counters were going off the scan. He wasn't bothered because he was at that time over 70, like I am too, now. And he thought, oh, 15 years, you know, I'll be whatever. But some of the men on that team were 30. So that would be 30 to 15, 45. They would have a problem when they were about 45. And it's very random. Some people can go through and not have any effect. They have an immunity to a degree, or they just miss, because it's very randomized, this irradiation. It's not uniform. And others can have a bad effect. So my message again, warning, as I always do, it's part of my job, is 5G. If you see a 5G mast, and you can inquire about this, going up near you, either stop it or move. Because would you put your cat in the microwave, close the door and switch it on? No, you wouldn't. Not if you want to live, you know, if you want the cat to live. One old lady did it to dry a cat one day. Poor love, cat did not do well. So if there's a mast going up, stop it or move. Seriously, if you've got one on the top of your apartment building, you're like putting yourself in a microwave oven. You're really irradiating yourself on this basis of time duration. You see, you might not see any effects for, you know, someone goes there and have a cup of tea for a couple of hours, probably has no effect. If you're living underneath it, particularly when you sleep, you are very susceptible to this kind of problem. Nucleoids, little particles in the water from the Northeast Pacific or any other nuclear fallout, difficult sometimes to keep them out of food. It's imbibing them, breathing them in is even worse, produces lung cancer. But go on the web and research it yourself. I can't give you all the data in this, you know, quick blast. It is key. It's particularly critical to children under the age of 6 years old. In the Fukushima area, a large percentage of little girls, more susceptible than boys, we don't know quite why, under the age of 6 have tumours now, particularly on the thyroid. Children under 6 should not have cell phones. I know it's a security and they can call mummy, but children under 6 should not have cell phones. They are far more susceptible to the radiation damage, probably due to the reproduction of their cells being so quick. Other things I could talk about, but I think we've covered enough today. Thank you very much indeed for listening, and thank you for buying the books, and thank you for your lovely reviews. Do please keep them coming. I really appreciate them, and I read your messages. And God bless you.